Questions and Answers on Genesis 2, Part 1. 1. What is the preparation of Noah? If anyone should wish to make an examination of the question of that ark of Noah's on more natural principles, he will find it to have been the preparation of the human body, as we shall see by the examination of each particular respecting it separately. 2. Why does he make the ark of squared pieces of wood? He does this in the first place because the figure of a square, wherever it may be placed, is steady and firm, consisting as it does of right angles, and it is confirmed in a purer and clearer manner by the nature of the human body. In the second place, he does this because, although our body is an instrument, and although every portion of it is rounded off, nevertheless the limbs which are compounded of all these portions do, by some manner or other, evidently reduce that circular orb to the figure of a quadrangle or square. For example, take the breast, which is rather square than circular. In the same manner, take the belly, after it is swollen with food or by any natural excess. For there are some men pot-bellied by nature, who are to be accepted from our present argument. But if anyone looks upon the arms and hands, and back and thighs, and feet of a man, he will find all these limbs compounded of a mixture of the square with the circular figure at the same time. In the third place, a quadrangular piece of wood shows in its extension nearly every sort imaginable of uneven distinction, inasmuch as its length is greater than its breadth, and its breadth greater than its depth. And such also is the formation of our bodies, which are compounded of one extension which is great, of another which is of moderate size, of another which is small, great in its length and small in its depth. 3. Why does God say, "You shall make the ark in nests"? He gives this order very naturally, for the human body is formed of holes like nests, every one of which is nourished and grows like a young bird. A certain spiritual force which exists in it from its earliest origin, penetrating through it, as, for instance, some of the holes and nests are the eyes, in which the faculty of sight has its abode. Other nests are the ears, which are the place where hearing is situated. A third class of nests are the nostrils, in which the sense of smell is lodged. The fourth nest, which is of larger dimensions than those already mentioned, is the mouth, which is the seat of the taste, and it has been made of large size, since, besides taste, there is also another still more important instrument, which is that of articulate speech reposing in it, namely the tongue, which, as Socrates was wont to say, by beating in every direction in various manners, and by touching different parts, composes and forms a word, being in truth an instrument under the immediate guidance of reason. And the nest is placed under the skull, and that which is called the membrane of the brain is a certain nest, as it were, of the genius of each man, as also the chest is a nest, in which abide the lungs and the heart. And both these things are receptacles of other internal organs, the lungs being the place in which the power of breathing is lodged, and the heart being the abode of both the blood and the breath. For it has two ventricles, which are, as it were, a certain kind of nests or receptacles in the breast, blood from which the veins, as if they could perceive its operations, are irrigated, and a breathing hole, which again is extended over and irrigates the perceptive channels of respiration. And both the harder as well as the softer parts do, like nests prepared for the purpose, nourish the bones as real nests nourish young birds, the harder portion of which, namely the marrow, is the nest, and the softer flesh is the nest of pleasure, and pain. And if anyone should wish to investigate the other parts, he will find that in every respect, the nature of man has much the same foundation as the ark. For why does God command the ark to be smeared with pitch, both on the inside and on the outside? Pitch is so called by reason of its bird-like tenacity, because it glues together whatever was disunited before, so as to form one indissoluble and indivisible joint. For everything which is held together by birdlime is immediately held to a natural union, but our body, being composed of many parts, is united on the outside, and is held together by its own proper habit. But the previous habit of connection which binds those things together is the soul, which, being situated in the middle, penetrates through every part till it reaches the surface, and then is turned back again from the surface to the center, so that our spiritual nature is rolled up compactly in a double fold, being united in a firm solidity and union. Therefore, this ark is smeared with pitch, both on the inside and the outside, for the reason here given. But that ark which is placed in the Holy of Holies, and is covered over with gold, is the similitude of the world appreciable only by the intellect, as is declared in the account given of it. Since just as there is a world appreciable by the intellect incarnate in incorporeal figures existing at the same time, consisting of a union of all figures by a certain invisible harmony, for in proportion as gold is a more noble material than pitch, in the same ratio is that ark which is in the Holy of Holies, superior to this one of which we are now speaking. And again, God ordained that its measure should be quadrangular from a regard to usefulness, but his object in the other ark was not so much that it should be useful as that it should be exempt from all possibility of decay, for the nature of incorporeal things, appreciable only by the intellect, is to be exempt from decay, being incorruptible and permanent. The one ark is tossed to and fro by the winds and the waters, but the other has its station constantly in the Holy of Holies, and being stable, it is akin to divine nature, as the other, which is tossed about in every direction and moved from one place to another, is akin to, and the emblem of created nature. Besides this, that ark of the flood being, as it were, an example of corruption, is raised on high, but the other, which is in the Holy of Holies, imitates the incorruptible condition of eternity. 5. Why did God give the measures of the ark in the following manner? The length to be of 300 cubits, and the breadth thereof to be 50 cubits, and the height to be 30 cubits, and above it was to be raised to a point in 1 cubit, being brought together gradually like an obelisk. It was necessary that so vast a work should be constructed in conformity with literal directions, in order that so many animals, some of them of vast size, should be received into it, as individuals of each class were introduced with the food necessary for them. But if the matter is considered properly with reference to its symbolical meaning, then, for the comprehension of the formation of our body, we shall require to make use not of the quantity of cubits, but of the certain principles and proportions which are observed in them. But the proportions which are contained in them are of sixfold and double, and other portions are added. For 300 is 6 times as many as 50, and 10 times as many as 30, and again 50 is by 2/3 a larger number than 30. Such then are also the proportions of the body. For if anyone should choose to investigate the matter and inquire into it carefully in all its points, he will find that man is made in an exact proportion of measurement, neither being too long or too little. And if a string be let down from his head to his feet, he will find that to reach that distance, it requires a string 6 times as long as the width of his chest, and 10 times as long as the depth of his ribs, and their breadth as a second part of depth added thereto. Such is the certain proportion, received in accordance with nature, of the human body, formed on exact measurement of the most excellently made men, who are incorrect, neither in the way of excess nor of defect. But again, it was with great wisdom and propriety that God ordained the summit to be completed in 1 cubit. For the upper part of the ark imitates the unity of the body, the head being forsooth as the citadel of the king, having for its inhabitant the chief of all, the intellect. But those parts which are below the head are divided into separate portions, as for instance into the hands, and in an especial degree into the lower parts, since the thighs and legs and feet are all kept distinct from one another. Therefore, whoever should wish to understand these matters, on the principle which I have pointed out, will easily comprehend the analogy of the cubits as I have related it. But above all things, he must not be ignorant that each of these different numbers of cubits has separately a certain necessary proportion and principle, beginning with the first, those in the length of the ark. Therefore, in its length, it is composed of 300 units, placed next to one another in continuation, according to the augmentation of units from these 24 numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. But the 24th number is above all others a natural number, being distributed among the hours of day and night, and also among the characters of language and literal speech. And it is also compounded of 3 cubes, being complete, full, and compacted in equality. For the number 3 constantly exhibits, as belonging to itself, the first equality of all, having a beginning and a middle and an end, all of which are equal to one another. And 8 is the first cube, because it again has declared its first equality with the rest. But the number 24 has likewise a great number of other virtues, since it is the substance of the number 300, as has been already pointed out. This then is its first virtue, and it has another, since it is compounded of 12 quadrangular figures joined to one another by a continuous unity, and besides of 2 long figures and 12 double figures, being forsooth compounded of 2s separately increased by 2 and 2. Therefore the angular numbers which make up together the 12 quadrangular figures are these: 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, and 23. But the quadrangular figure combines the following numbers: 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 124. But those angular numbers which compose the other long figures are these: 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, being 12 in all. And after these come the compound numbers 2, 6, 12, 20, 30, 42, 56, 72, 90, 110, 132, and 156, being also 12. And if you put together the 12 quadrangular figures, you will find 144. And if you add the other 12 long figures, you will find 156. and from the combination of the two, you will get the number 300 and the concord of full and complete and perfect nature, rising up to the equal and infinite harmony. For a complete and perfect nature is the maker of equality according to the nature of a triangle, but the equal and the infinite are the factors of inequality according to the composition of the other long figure. But the universe consists of a combination of equality and inequality, on which account the Creator himself, even amid the destruction of all earthly things, placed a sort of fixed pattern of stability in the ark. This then is enough to say about the number 300. We must now proceed to speak of the 50 cubits on the following principle. For in the first place, it is composed of the right angle of the quadrangular figures, for a right angle is compounded of 3, 4, and 5, and the square of these is 9, 16, and 25, the sum total of which, when added together, is 50. In the second place, the perfect number 50 is composed of these 4 triangles linked together, 1, 3, 6, 10, and again of these 4 equal quadrangles also united together, 1, 4, 9, 16. Therefore these triangles, when collected together, make 20, and the quadrangles make 30, and 20 and 30 added together make 50. But if the triangle and the quadrangle are added together, they make a heptangular figure, so that it is contained by its virtue in the number of 50, that divine and holy number, to which the prophet had regard when he proclaimed the Jubilee festival. And the whole of the Jubilee year is free and a deliverer. The third theorem is 3 triangles beginning with the unit, connected together in a continuous series, and 3 cubes beginning also with the unit and connected together in a similar manner, which together make 50. The examples of the first are 1, 4, and 9, which make 14. The examples of the second are 1, 8, and 27, which together make 36. And the sum total of the two when added together is 50. Again, 30 is in an especial manner a natural number, for as in the series of units the number 3 is, so is the number 30 in the series of decimals. And that makes up the cycle of the moon, being the collection of separate months in full delineation. Secondly, it is composed of 4 numbers, which are united in the continual series of these quadrangular figures, 1, 4, 9, and 16, which together make up 30, on which account it was not without some foundation and sufficient reason that Heraclitus called that number generation, when he said, "A man in 30 years from the time of his birth can become a grandfather, inasmuch as he arrives at the age of puberty in his 14th year, at which age he is capable of becoming a father. And at the end of the year his offspring arrives at the birth, and again in 15 years more begets another offspring like himself. And out of these names of grandfathers, fathers, and sons, as also out of the names of grandmothers, mothers, and daughters, a generation complete in its offspring is produced." Mach 6. What is the meaning of a door in the side? For he says, "Thou shalt make a door in the side." That door in the side very plainly betokens a human building, which he has becomingly indicated by calling it in the side, by which door all the excrements of dung are cast out. In truth, as Socrates says, whether because he learned it from Moses or because he was influenced by the facts themselves, the Creator, having due regard to the decency of our body, has placed the exit and passage of the different ducts of the body back out of the reach of the sense, in order that while getting rid of the fetid portions of bile, we might not be disgusted by beholding the full appearance of our excrements. Therefore, he has surrounded that passage by the back and posteriors, which project out like hills, as also the buttocks are made soft for other objects. 7. Why has he said that the lower part of the ark was to be made with 2 and with 3 stories? He has here admirably indicated the receptacles of food, calling them the inner parts of the house, since food is corruptible, and what is corruptible belongs to the inward part, because it is borne downwards, since some small portions of meat and drink which we take are borne upwards, but the greater part is secreted and cast out into dung, and the intestines have been made in 2 and in 3 stories, because of the providence of the Creator, in order to supply abundant support to his creatures. For if he had made the receptacles of food and its passage having a direct communication between the balls and the buttocks, some awkward circumstances must have taken place. In the first place, there would have been a frequent deficiency and want and hunger and sudden evacuations also arising from divers unseasonable events. In the second place, there would have been an immense hunger, for when the receptacles are emptied, it is inevitable that hunger and thirst must immediately supervene, like absolute mistresses in difficulty from pregnancy, and then it follows also that the pleasant appetite for food must be perverted into greediness and into an unphilosophical state, for nothing is so very inconvenient as for the belly to be empty. And in the third place, there will be death waiting at the door, since those persons must speedily be overtaken by death, who the very moment that they have done eating begin again to be hungry, and the moment that they have drunk are again thirsty, and who before they are thoroughly filled are again evacuated and oppressed by hunger. But owing to the long coils and windings of the bowels, we are delivered from all feelings of hunger, from all greediness, and from being prematurely overtaken by death. For while the food which has been taken remains within us, not for such a time only as the distance to be passed requires, but for so long as was necessary for us, a change in it is effected. Since by the pressure to which it is subjected, the strength of the food is extracted in the first instance in the belly, then it is armed in the liver and drawn out. After that, whatever predominant flavor there was is emitted upwards to the separate parts, in the case of boys in order to contribute to their growth, and in the case of full-grown men to add to their strength, and then nature, collecting the remaining portions into dung and excrement, casts them out. Therefore, a great deal of time is necessarily required for the arrangement of so many and such important affairs, nature effecting its operations without difficulty by perseverance. Moreover, the ark itself appears to me to be very fitly compared to the human body, for as nature is exceedingly prolific of living creatures, for that very reason it has prepared an opposite receptacle, similar to the earth, for the creatures corrupted and destroyed by the flood. For whatever was alive and supported on the earth, the ark now bore within itself in a more general manner, and on that account God ordained it, being borne upon the waters as it was, to be as it were like the earth, a mother and a nurse, and to exhibit the fathers of the subsequent race as if pregnant with it, together with the sun and moon, and the remaining multitude of the stars, and all the host of heaven. Because men, beholding by means of that which was made by art, a comparison and analogy to the human body, might in that manner be more manifestly taught. For this was the cause of the various disputes among mankind, since there is nothing which has so much contributed to keep man in a servile condition as the essential humors of the body and the defects which arise in consequence of them, and most especially the vicious pleasures and desires. 8. Why does he say that the deluge will be to the corrupting of all flesh, in which there is the breath of life beneath the heaven? One may almost say that what he had previously spoken in riddles he has now made plain, for there was no other cause for the corruption of mankind except that, being slaves to pleasure and to desire, they did everything and were anxious about everything for that reason only. Moreover, they passed a life of extreme misery. But he added also, in a very natural manner, the place where the breath of life is, using the expression under heaven, because forsooth there are living beings also in heaven. For a happy body has not been made out of a heavenly substance, as if in truth it had received some peculiar and admirable condition, superior to that of other living creatures. But heaven appears to have been made especially worthy of and for the sake of these admirable and divine living beings, all of which are intellectual spirits, so that they give a share and participation in themselves and in the essence of vitality, even to the creatures which exist upon the earth, and give life to all those which are capable of receiving it. 9. Why does he say all things which existed upon the earth shall be consumed? For what sin can the beasts commit? In the first place, as when a sovereign is slain in battle, the military valor of the kingdom is also crushed, so also he now has thought it reasonable that when the whole human race, bearing analogy to a sovereign, is destroyed, he should also destroy simultaneously with it the species of beasts likewise, on which account also in pestilences the beasts die first, and especially those which are bred up with and associate with men, such as dogs and similar animals, and afterwards the men die too. In the second place, as when the head is cut off, no one blames nature if the other portions of the body also, numerous and important as they are destroyed along with it. So too, now no one can find fault with anything, since man is as it were the head and chief of all animals, and when he is destroyed, it is not at all strange if all the rest of the beasts are destroyed also along with him. In the third place, animals were originally made not for their own sakes, as has been said by the philosophers, but in order to do service to mankind and for their use and glory. Therefore it is very reasonable that when those beings are destroyed for the sake of whom they had their existence, they also should be deprived of life. And this is the reason of this assertion in its literal sense. But with respect to its hidden meaning, we may say, when the soul is exposed to a deluge from the overflow of vices, and is in a manner stifled by them, those portions also which are on the earth, the earthly parts I mean of the body, must of necessity likewise perish along with it. For life passed in wickedness is death. The eyes, though they see, perish, inasmuch as they see wrongly. The ears also, though they hear, perish, inasmuch as they hear wrongly. And the whole body of the senses perishes, inasmuch as they are all exercised wrongly. 10. What is the meaning of the expression, I will set up my treaty with you? In the first place, he here warns us that no man is the inheritor of the divine substance, except him who is endowed with virtue, since the inheritance of men is possessed when they themselves are no longer in existence, but when they are dead. But as God is everlasting, he grants a participation in his inheritance to wise men, rejoicing at their entering into possession of it. For he who has entered into possession of everything is in want of nothing, but they who are in distress from a want of all things are in the possession of no portion of truth. And on this account God, showing himself favorable to the virtuous, benefits them, bestowing on those things of which they have need. In the second place, he bestows on the wise man a certain and more ample inheritance, for he does not say, I will set up my treaty for you, but with you, that is to say, you are yourself a just and true treaty, which I will set up for the race endued with reason, who have need of virtue for a possession and a glory to them. 11. Why does he say, Enter thou and all thy house into the ark, because I have seen that thou art a just man before me in that generation? In the first place, certain faith receives approbation, inasmuch as for the sake of one man who is just and worthy, many men are saved by reason of their relationship to him, as is the case too with sailors and armies, when the one have a good captain and the others an excellent and skillful general. In the second place, he extols the just man with praise, who thus acquires virtues, not for himself alone, but also for his whole family, which in this way deserves safety. And it is with peculiar propriety that this expression is added, namely, I have seen that thou art a just man before me. For men approve of the life of anyone upon one principle, and God on quite a different one. For they judge by what is visible, but he derives his tests from the invisible designs of the soul. Moreover, that is a very remarkable expression which is added as an insertion, namely, the one which says, I have seen that thou art a just man in this generation, that he might not appear to condemn those who had gone before, nor cut off the future hope of coming generations. This is the sense of the passage taken according to the letter. But if we look at its inward meaning, when God will save the intellect of the soul, which is the principal part of the man, that is to say, the head of the family, then also he will save the whole family along with him. I mean all the parts, and all those who bear an analogy to the parts, and to the word which is uttered, and to the circumstances of the body. For what the intellect is in the soul, that also is the soul in the body. All the parts of the soul are in good condition, owing to the result of counsels, and all its family derives the benefit along with it. But when the whole soul is in a good condition, then also its habitation is again found to be benefited by purity of morals and sobriety, those overstrained desires which are the causes of diseases being cut off. 12. Why does he order 7 of each of the clean animals, male and female, to be taken into the ark, but of the unclean animals only 2, male and female, in order to preserve seed upon all the earth? By divine ordinance, he has asserted the number 7 to be clean, and the number 2 to be unclean, since the number 7 is clean by nature, inasmuch as that is a virgin number, free from all admixture, and without any parent. Nor does it generate anything, nor is it generated as each of those numbers which are below the number 10, on account of their similitude to the unit, because it is uncreated and unbegotten, and nothing is generated by it, although it is itself the cause of creation and generation, because it rouses the virtues of all things which are well arranged for the generation of created beings. But the number 2 is not clean, in the first place, because it is empty, not solid, and because it is not full, therefore neither is it clean, because it is likewise the beginning of infinite immensity by reason of its materiality. It also labors under inequality on account of the other long numbers, for all the other numbers after 2 which are increased in a 2-fold proportion are long numbers, but that which is unequal is not clean, as neither is that which is material. but that which proceeds from such is fallible and inelegant, being destitute of the purity of reason to conduct it to completeness and perfection, and it conducts it to such by its own intrinsic power and by songs of harmony and equality. This is enough to say on the physical part of the subject. It remains for us to speak of its moral bearings. The irrational parts of our soul, which are destitute of intellect, are divided into 7, that is to say, into the 5 senses, and the vocal organ, and the seminal organ. Now these in a man endued with virtue are all clean, and by nature feminine, inasmuch as they belong to the irrational species, but to a man who has come into full possession of his inheritance, they are masculine. For men endued with virtue are also the parents of the virtue of counsel to themselves, the best part of them not permitting them to come to the external senses in a precipitate and unbridled manner, but repressing them and leading them back to right reason. But in the wicked man there exists a twofold wickedness, since the unjust man is full of doubts and perplexities, as a hesitating person, mingling things which ought not to be mixed, and connecting them with one another, confounding those things which may very easily be kept separate. Such are those passions which imbue the soul with some particular color, like a man spotted and leprous in body, the originally sound counsel being infected and contaminated by that which is destructive and fatal. But the principle of the entrance and of the custody of animals is added in a natural manner, for he says, for the sake of nourishing seed. If we take the expression according to the letter, inasmuch as although particular individuals may be destroyed, still at least a race is preserved to be the seed of future generations. Forsooth, that the intention of God, conceived at the formation of the world, might remain forever and ever unextinguishable, the different races of creatures being preserved. But if we regard the inward meaning of the words, it is necessary that in the irrational parts of the soul likewise there should be motions which are clean, as certain seminal principles, although the animals themselves are not clean, since the nature of mankind is capable of admitting opposites, for instance, virtue and wickedness, each of which he delineated at the creation of the world, by the tree bearing the name of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Forsooth, our intellect, in which there is both knowledge and intelligence, comprehends both good and evil. But good is akin to the number 7, and evil is the brother of duality. Moreover, the law of wisdom, which abounds in beauty, says expressly and carefully that seed is to be nourished, not in one place only, but in all the earth, both naturally in the first instance, and also morally in its peculiar sense, because it is very natural and suitable to the character of God to cause that which in all parts and divisions of the world is said again to be the seed of living beings, to fill places which have been evacuated a second time with similar creatures by a repeated generation, and not altogether to desert our body, inasmuch as it is an earthly substance, as if it were a thing deserted by and void of all principle of life. Since, if we practice the drinking of wines and the eating of meats, and indulge in the ardent desire of the female, and in short practice in all things a delicate and luxurious life, we are then only the bearers of a corpse in the body. But if God, taking compassion on us, turns away the overflow of vices and renders the soul dry, he will then begin to make the body living and to animate it with a purer soul, the governing principle of which is wisdom. 13. Why, after the entrance of Noah into the ark, did 7 days elapse, after which the deluge came, the kind Savior of the world allows a space for the repentance of sinners, in order that when they see the ark placed in front of them as a sort of type, made with respect to the then present time, and when they see all the different kinds of living creatures shut up in it, which the earth used to bear on its surface, according to its parts adapted to the different species, they might believe the predictions of the deluge which had been made to them, so that, fearing total destruction above all things, they might be speedily converted, destroying and eradicating all their iniquity and wickedness. In the second place, this language is a most manifest representation of the exceeding great abundance of the kind mercy of the beneficent Savior, by destroying the wickedness of many years, which from the time of their birth to old age has extended itself over their conduct in those persons who practice penitence for a few days. For the divine nature forgets all evil and is a lover of virtue. When therefore it beholds faithful virtue in the soul, it gives it honor in a wonderful degree, in order, in the first place, to take away all kinds of evil which impend over it from its sins. In the third place, the number of 7 days after the entrance of Noah into the ark, during which the command of God kept off the flood, is a recollection of the creation of the world, the birthday festival of which is kept on the 7th day, showing manifestly the authority of the Father, just as if he were to say, "I am the creator of the world, commanding things to exist which have no existence. And at the same time, I am he who am now about to destroy the world with a great flood." But the original cause of the creation of the world was the goodness which is in me, and my kindness. And the cause of its impending destruction is the ingratitude and impiety of those persons who have been loaded by benefits by me. Therefore, he causes an interval of 7 days, in order that the unbelieving may remember, and that those who have abandoned their faith in the parent of the world may in a suppliant spirit return to the Creator of all things, and so may entreat him again, that his works may be everlasting, and that they may offer their entreaty, not with mouth and tongue, but rather with the heart of amendment and penitence. 14. Why did the reign of the deluge last 40 days and an equal number of nights? In the first place, the word day is used in a double sense, the one meaning that time which is from morning to evening, that is to say, from the first rising of the sun in the east to his sinking in the west. Therefore they who make definitions say, that is day, as long as the sun shines on the earth. In another sense, the word day is used of the day and night together, and in this sense we say that a month consists of 30 days, combining together and computing the period of night in the same calculation. These premises having been first laid down thus, I say that the word now spoken of has not been incorrectly employed, inasmuch as it implies 40 days and 40 nights, but is also so used in order to suggest a double number determined for the generation of mankind, namely 40 and 80, as many men skilled in medicine, and indeed also in physical science, have suggested. But it is especially described in the sacred law, which was to them also the first principle of natural science. Since therefore destruction was on the point of overwhelming all men and women everywhere on account of the excessive combination of iniquities and quarrels, the judge of all considered it becoming to allot an equal time to their destruction, to that which he had consumed in the original creation of nature, and to the work of giving life to the world. For the principle of procreation is the perseverance of seed in the different parts. but it was necessary to honor the male creature with pure light, which knows not the shade. But the woman had a mixture in her body of night and darkness. Therefore, in the creation of the whole world, the excess of the male or the unequal number, being composed of unity, becomes the parent of square numbers. But the woman who is an unequal number, being compounded of duality, becomes the parent of other long numbers. Moreover, the square is splendor and light combining together by the equality of the sides. But the other numbers, being long, necessarily exhibit night and darkness by reason of their inequality, since that which is in excess throws a shade over that which lies beneath the excess. In the second place, the number 40 is the produce of many virtues, as has been suggested in another place. It is also often used for the judgment of legislation, both with reference to those persons who have done anything rightly deserving of praise and honor, and also with reference to those who on account of their sins meet with reproaches and punishments, so that it is superfluous to adduce proofs to demonstrate what is evident. 15. What is the meaning of the expression, "I will destroy every living substance that I have made from off the face of the earth"? Do you not all shrink back in astonishment when you hear these words, by reason of the beauty of the sentence? For he has not said, "Destroy from the earth," but from the face of the earth, that is to say, from its surface, in order, that is, that in the lowest depth of the earth, the vital efficacy of all seeds might be preserved unhurt and free from all injury which could possibly bring damage to it, since the Creator was not forgetful of his original design, but destroys those only who come in his way, and who move only on the surface of the earth, but leaves the roots in the depth in order to produce the generation of other causes. Moreover, that expression, "I will destroy," was also written by divine inspiration, for it happens that if we remove the letters which require to be removed, the whole table for the reception of letters remains the same, by which he proves that he will destroy the fickle generation on account of their impiety, but the conversation and essence of the human race he will preserve forever and ever to be the seed of future generations. And what follows agrees with this, since to the expression, "I will destroy," this other is also added, all natural existence, everything which exists or rises upon the earth. But existence is the destruction of the opposite characteristics, and that which is dissolved loses quality, but retains body and materiality. This is the letter of what is said. But in the inward meaning, the flood is symbolically representative of spiritual dissolution. When therefore, by the grace of the Father, we desire to throw away and to wash off all sensible and corporeal qualities by which the intellect was infected as by swelling sores, then the muddy slime is got rid of as by a deluge, sweet waters and wholesome fountains supervening. 16. Why does he say, Noah did everything which the Lord commanded or ordered him? A noble panegyric for the just man. In the first place, because with an ingenuous mind and a purpose full of affection towards God he performed, not a part of what he had been commanded, but the whole of God's commands. But the second is the more true expression, because he does not choose so much to command as to order him. For masters command their slaves, but friends order friends, and especially elder friends order younger ones. Therefore, it is a marvelous gift to be found even in the rank of servants and in the list of ministers of God. And it is a superabundant excess of kindness for anyone to be a beloved friend to the most glorious, uncreated essence.